gamers of Reddit, what is a game franchise that you used to love and has now gone to shit? Almost anything Activision touches, something that plays pretty good and gets semi-popular, quick. Let's work our dev team, or get multiple, to the bone to pump out a new one every year. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was one of my favorites that suffered this fate. It was recently redeemed with the release of THPS 1+2. However, because it was successful, I'm not hopeful for any of the sequels that are inevitably on their way. Command & Conquer, Dawn of War, etc. The RTS genre in general actually. The inability to make the games work on consoles in combination with MOBAs filling the niche for people that dislike macro just seems to have killed it. What also doesn't help is that a lot of the games were so very good, that if you make a new RTS game, you'll probably still lose in comparison to StarCraft 2, Red Alert 2, Generals, Supreme Commander. I hated most things done in Shadowlands so much that this is the first time I've really quit for a long period. For the first time in well over a decade, I'm not waiting for a patch, not reading guides, not working on alts. I uninstalled in the spring and I'm not sure if I'll ever give it another try. Kinda sucks that it was my only connection to a lot of people, but I just hate the game so much right now. There's better time sinks that don't have a subscription fee. I don't think FF14 is a groundbreaking MMO, but what it has done is make everyone playing WoW wake up and make you see that good content isn't just a grind for item level and daily quests you can't afford to ignore. FF14 gets there with a decent story, and challenges you with boss mechanics and learning your rotation. Gear is a factor, but it's not the factor. But more importantly, FF14 respects your time. I started playing when Orcs vs Humans came out, loved the RTS, and loved vanilla and PC. I started feeling like the game stopped being the social, fun, progression-based game after Wrath. By the time BFA was released, running 5-man dungeons was silence. PvP was just bitching ... not talk for help attacks, need heals here ... etc. Honestly think the best part of WoW, beside the gameplay, was the social aspects. SO is a massive game and has huge expansions all the time. I'm no MMO connoisseur, but I swear the quest storytelling across the board is on par or better than anything that went on in Oblivion or Skyrim. I have sunk hundreds of hours doing only solo content or with only occasional help from randoms and haven't yet felt like I've missed too much. If you don't like SO or its combat or its online or lack of modding, whatever, that's fine, but you literally can't truthfully say that no meaningful Elder Scrolls content has been released between 2011 and now. I'm a huge fan and I liked Origins and Odyssey, but I have to agree, I thought they might be trying something new, which is how we got those awesome naval mechanics. But nope, was actually a setup for more microtransactions. Took time off work to play Valhalla and was really disappointed. How do you make a game about Vikings, assassins and several of the biggest cultural upheavals in a country's history so boring? I think the main reason these games failed was due to the absolute sheer amount of games they released. Not even considering the Rock Band series, it feels like they released a new Guitar Hero game every 6 months in its heyday. That being said, most of the games were solid releases. I mean, they were all just essentially the same game with different songs after GH3. The only stinkers I can really think of are Rock the 80s, Aerosmith, and GH5. Even those games have some enjoyable tracks. Guitar Hero Live is garbage though. Planetside 2, a massive multiplayer online first-person shooting between 3 factions with the use of infantry, vehicles, and aircraft, all about organization, teamwork, and coordination, only for the company to be sold to a graveyard company to milk the very last cent of it. Hire Uber to become lead developer. and just watch the game turn into a dead-brain mutilated trash bin where teamwork got basically removed, heavy cater to infantry-only players, and total nerf of the inconvenience of elements that might force players having to play together and coordinate. Vehicles are now useless. The massive fights for which it was famous for are disencouraged by game mechanics, and anything that might bother the solo infantryman gets nerfed to obsolescence. It's now a trash game with no sense of objective, no sense of what to do, and overfilled with useless cash grab features that do not benefit the game itself. Fallout 1 and 2 were masterpieces that captured the horror of the post-apocalypse. Fallout 3 tried to adapt this to a 3D environment and, of course, it couldn't be the same. Much like how the movie is always different from the book it is based on, and being their first try, it sucked. Fallout 10V is where they perfected the feeling and managed to adapt the game as much as possible to 3D. Finding a new formula, and I loved how they played with themes, post-apocalypse with 50s Las Vegas aesthetics with Vietnam vibes with Roman soldiers. It's amazing how you can play blackjack in a fancy casino or fight in a Roman arena in the same game and somehow it all fits together. Fallout 4 feels like it is no longer set in a post-apocalyptic world, but in a post-apocalyptic themed amusement park. Fallout 1 and 2 were barren and sober. Fallout 10V was barren, but also diverse. Fallout 4 is packed with repetitive, over-the-top content. In what was supposed to be a barren wasteland there are settlements, bandits and villains with crazy weapons at every corner. Even the style is over the top. Previous Fallout games looked like they were made by people who saw what 50s retrofuturism looked like, or close enough to see the style. Fallout 4 looks like it was made by a 25-year-old artist making vintage art. Compare the design of the cars from 4 to the cars from NV, or the new Coca-Cola bottle, or the buildings. And while Fallout 2 had computers the size of closets, one of the main points in the Fallout lore is that the transistor hasn't been invented and people kept using vacuum tubes, and Fallout 10V had an Elvis Presley faction. Fallout 4 has an entire Apple Store 2010's minimalism faction. I am not really looking forward to see what Fallout 5 will be like. Edit, I almost forgot. There's something a reviewer said that completely captures the amusement park feel of Fallout 4. Fallout 1 and 2 explore the gruesome violence of the post-apocalypse. Fallout 4 put a fucking cha-ching sound on when you kill someone and get XP, or any other XP gain. That's Fallout NV. In fact, civilization is far more advanced on the West Coast. They have countries with governments, treaties, federations, society. Fallout 4's greatest city is a stadium. It's implied that the NCR is, in many ways, essentially 50s America. When I say crammed with over-the-top stuff, I don't mean advanced society, I mean there are Ritter comps next to each other, next to Meyer Lurks, next to super mutants, next to a fuckton of ghouls. It feels cramped and repetitive, and on higher levels, they all have top-tier gear. How the hell does raiding a settlement, 2 people in the Tato plant, feed 10 different trader camps? How do those camps and creatures not kill each other completely? And how, in this crammed environment, are there advanced weapons, ammunition and valuables still laying around in containers 200 years after the war? I know this is common video game logic, but that's the thing. Up to NV it was somewhat realistic. 4 is a playground, and I'm not saying it isn't fun. It feels like Borderlands, where you find advanced rocket launchers and toilets. But Borderlands already exists and it's great. Fallout was meant to be something else. GTA Online is their big cash cow. They won't be doing anything to fix the bugs or glitches, cheaters and griefers. I reinstalled it the other day to try it out again after watching Fail Race on. I logged in and had to step away for a few minutes. When I returned, someone on a crotch rocket, the flying engine you sit on, not sure the real name, is busy pushing my character, trying to, I don't know what, a griefer for sure, but Rockstar allowed this to happen. Can't do any business missions unless you are in a public lobby so others can grief you, and this is so you buy the shark cards for cash as you can't do your missions to earn the money in-game. Pokemon. It seems like every new game becomes targeted at even younger audiences where they hold your hand through so much of the game and it's a little too artificial in the upbeat attitudes, like your rival acting like it's so amazing that he lost to you and you're so great. The new Pokemon also mostly just seem like people in animal costumes. Bring back Gary and less humanoid new Pokemon. Also remember when Pokemon was about gotta catch 'em all and now not all of them are in the game. Makes me sad. No, but if you somehow traded from you, he could at least be in your game. I still have some of my Game Boy Pokemon because I traded them forward to every new generation. Nowadays, we are talking about not being able to trade certain Pokemon into your game because the game doesn't allow for it, because they didn't create the data and models for it. That's not only lazy development, it also goes completely against the spirit of Pokemon. There's always a new gimmick, and they seem to try to one-up themselves every time. Mega Evolutions, Dynamax, Gigantamax, whatever Ultra Beasts are. Haven't played since Gen 6, and then mostly Gen 3 before that, so I'm not exactly clear on what all this new stuff is. But it's all gotten so weird and complex. Also, having literal god Pokemon is a really strange idea to me. A 10-year-old trying 2 minutes max a turtle can now acquire Satan. I think that's because after Gen 5 terrible reception, the Pokemon Company just kinda lost all their steam. Gen 5 was them trying to do something a bit different and a bit more complex, and it was panned because of it. And because that, a lot of their next attempts at something new are hampered by the need to also sell well. X and Y, while weak story-wise, was definitely setting up some sort of BW2-style sequel, what with Zygarde and Daz and the entire historical World War, which just never got made for some reason. Sun and Moon had a completely different progression system, what with the islands and no gyms. A very different evil team and a main plot with characters and themes that are get quite dark at times. But it was constantly being thematically whiplashed by the likes of how handholdy everything was so they wouldn't lose anyone along the way, and also the fact that the sequels threw all of that story complexity for the sake of ... I don't actually know what, and it's no secret that Masuda thought that the Switch would flop spectacularly. Hence why Sword and Shield looked more like a 3D game than a Switch game, and it's so infuriating seeing all the story elements and characters that could make for a great story about succession and legacy be put together in such an awkward way and then exaggerated to the point where they're just annoying. That being said, Gary sucks as a rival. He's just a one-dimensional roadblock of a character whose only personality is he's mean, and actually, aside from Silver, who is, Giovanni's son and also gets character development, and Bede, a Gen 8 character, we don't actually have that many asshole rivals, and out of those three, Gary is easily the least interesting. I mean, Wally was definitely a nice rival, and Barry was just constantly excited about battling and was your best friend. 2 was peak. That gothic horror element of 1 and 2 was lost on 3. Your spot on 3 felt like a Chinese LOL ripoff. Did I still enjoy it? Sure. I did several playthroughs. Eventually it turns into button mashing glass cannon builds to hit GR 100+. I forget where I stopped, but it was around 105 solo with 2000-ish pair gang points. All ancient legendaries with a few primals mixed in. There was nothing left to do at that point. D2 felt like it had far more replay value, and it was an actual accomplishment when you found a unique item better than your current. Diablo 4 looks like they are returning to the gothic horror element and reducing the ultra-fast exaggerated anime-style action that I honestly can't friggin' stand. Not sure if this is still true lol. I think that if you said this a few years back no one would disagree with you, but if you look at the content coming from the franchise lately you get well-reviewed kart racing games, a critically acclaimed 2D platformer, a movie that punched well above its weight, etc. I think the meme of Sonic Bad lol has far overtaken the truth for way too long and people should realize it's not the zeros anymore. Yes, it definitely is still true. Sonic Team haven't made a good game in a decade. The Sonic movie was better than what people expected but it was still average at best. Sonic Team Racing disappointed fans of the All-Stars racing games and Sonic Mania is the only Sonic game to receive critical acclaim in a very long time, and even then it's literally a fan-made game. For me, Assassin's Creed. I played everything up to Syndicate, never played Origins because the playstyle difference was a bit much for me and I'm not a big fan of the Egyptian setting. Gave Odyssey a go when people said it was a better game mechanically. I also like the setting more, so yeah. Blay don't like the action focus and superpowers you seemingly have, and I just didn't care about the story. Now Valhalla is out. It looks exactly the same as Odyssey, so that's a no-go for me. Now once a year one watched lore videos on YouTube about it just in case I jump back in one day. The future doesn't look too good with AC and that's okay with me. The game has evolved for a new audience and I hope they enjoy it the way I used to. Yeah, Origins was the first AC game I played since the original that I never completed. Midway through I just got bored with how slow and grindy the progression was, and the amount of level gating going on was just obnoxious. I didn't even bother playing the follow-ups. Now I'm just going to buy the Discovery Tour walking sim versions until the gameplay style changes again, if it ever does. Call of Duty, before the time of Black Ops, before the time they were jumping around with 8 plates in their plate carrier, before the dark times. I remember when I was out buying my first PC with my mom, I specifically said I wanted a PC on which COD 4 would work like a charm. There's no game in this world which meant more to me than COD 4. COD was groundbreaking. Before that COD 2 was groundbreaking, then the switch between Infinity Ward and Treyarch, which meant a new game each year but with less quality IMO, and it keeps going. They don't have any ideas anymore as to what they're supposed to invent. Obviously there's a lot of people still playing but my time with Call of Duty has ended, and you can say whatever you want about the new games, but to me, ever since Modern Warfare 2 came out, this franchise has been dying out. Yes, Warzone is nice, but Battle Royale games bore the shit out of me, always the same. FF15 could have been a great game, but once they had a complete story they chopped it up and sold it out as DLC, films and novels etc. What we were left with in the actual game was a villain we didn't understand and a plot that ran out of steam very early. If they had released all the DLC with the actual game, focused more on the road trip and gotten rid of that stupid drink part at the end, it could have been halfway decent. I will give them a pass on the fighting mechanic because I think they have perfected it with the FF7 remake, so can use that going forward. Turn-based RPG was what brought me to gaming in the early 90s and FF was always a great game in that style, but lately, they've changed their gameplay so much the new games aren't even playable to me. They totally alienated old fans, like me, from the series. Way to remake one of my favorite childhood games but change the style into one I don't play. Frown. Splinter Cell, not that it's gone to shit per se, just that there hasn't been any new shit in almost a decade. I've enjoyed every iteration of Splinter Cell, even the new ones. All of the other Tom Clancy franchises have seen several new games each over the last 10 years. Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, The Division. But where's my man Sam Fisher? Mario Kart and the new Super Mario Bros. Series, whatever that means. Mario Kart easily peaked with between community, uniqueness, innovation, and how goddamn broken it was. 7, 8, and Deluxe will never be able to touch the kind of status the Wii holds on to over a decade later, mostly because they removed everything that made Wii great instead of building on it. The NSMB series has been milked to death. DS and Wii were our best, everything else after was a cash grab.